Commander Day stood on the observation deck of Bastion 7, staring at the impossible sight before him. The defense station orbited Mars in silence, but that silence had been shattered 30 minutes ago when they arrived. Ships, hundreds of them. Each one was massive beyond anything humanity had ever built. The smallest vessel was 3 times larger than Earth's biggest carrier. The largest ones looked like floating cities, their hulls stretching for kilometers, blocking out the stars behind them. "Sir, we're receiving another transmission," said Ensign Quan from the communication station. His voice shook slightly. He was young, barely 23, and this was his first real posting. "Put it through," Day replied. He kept his voice steady, though his heart hammered in his chest. The holographic display flickered to life. A creature appeared, tall and covered in dark scales that gleamed like polished metal. Its eyes were golden and cold. When it spoke, the translator rendered its words into flat, emotionless English. "I am Lord Vexer, High Commander of the Valorian Imperium. Your species has been evaluated. You will submit to Imperial authority within 72 hours. Surrender your weapons, your ships, and your governments. Accept our rule. This is your only option. Refuse and you will be eliminated. We have conquered 200 species before you. All of them knelt. You will kneel too." The transmission ended. The display went dark. Quan looked at Day with wide eyes. "Sir, what do we do?" Day did not answer immediately. He turned back to the window, watching the alien fleet hang in space like a collection of metal moons. 72 hours. 3 days to decide the fate of humanity. Down on Earth, emergency meetings were already starting. Day could imagine the chaos in government buildings across every nation. Some leaders would want to fight. Others would want to surrender immediately. Everyone would be afraid. Dr. Hana arrived on the observation deck 20 minutes later. She was Earth's best xenolinguist, the person who had helped humanity talk to every alien species they had met so far. She looked tired. Her eyes were red like she had been crying. "I've been analyzing their message," she said without greeting. "And I've been reading everything we have about the Valorian Imperium. What did you find?" Day asked. Hana pulled up a datapad and showed him a series of files. "They've done this before. Many times. They arrive at a planet, demand surrender, and take control. But here's the problem. I looked at what happened to the species that surrendered." She scrolled through images and reports. Dead worlds. Enslaved populations. Entire species extinct. "They don't keep their promises," Hana continued. "Every species that knelt was eventually destroyed. Some were worked to death in mines. Others were used as test subjects. A few were just eliminated when the Imperium did not need them anymore. Surrender does not save us. It just makes our death slower." Dave felt something cold settle in his stomach. "You're saying we have no choice but to fight." "I'm saying that fighting might be the only chance we have," Hana replied. "Even if it's a small chance." Admiral Tay arrived at Bastion 7 6 hours later. He was an old man, gray-haired and stern, but his eyes were sharp. He had fought in Earth's last major war 30 years ago. He knew what war meant. He called a meeting with all the senior officers. Day attended, along with Quan and several others. Ambassador Mira joined them via video link from Earth. "Governments are divided," Mira said. Her face looked haggard on the screen. "Half want to surrender. They say fighting is suicide. The other half want to resist, but they don't know if we can win." "We can't win," said one of the other officers, a captain named Bora. "Look at their fleet. We have maybe 200 combat-capable ships in our entire defense force. They have that many just sitting in Mars orbit. This isn't a war. This is an execution." "Then we die fighting," Admiral Tay said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. "We die fighting or we die kneeling. Those are our options. But I'll tell you something. I've studied war for 50 years. And every war has moments where the impossible becomes possible. We are smaller. We are weaker. But we are not defeated yet." Day found himself nodding. He looked at Quan, who was listening with wide eyes. "There's something else," Day said. "I've been watching their fleet. Their formation is wrong." Everyone stared at him. "What do you mean?" Admiral Tay asked. Day pulled up a tactical display. "This is a parade formation. Ships spread out for maximum visual impact. They're not arranged for combat. Their shields aren't overlapping. Their point defense systems aren't coordinated. They expect no resistance at all." "Because they never get resistance," Bora said. "Every species surrenders." "Exactly," Day replied. "They're arrogant. They've never had to actually fight. That might be their weakness. The room fell silent as everyone considered this. Ambassador Mira spoke up from the screen. I need to know what message to send back to the Imperium. Earth's governments are waiting. What do we tell them? Admiral Tay looked around the room. We tell them that humanity does not kneel. That's a death sentence, another officer said. Maybe, Tay replied. But Dr. Hana's research shows that surrender is also a death sentence. At least if we fight, we die on our feet. The vote was not unanimous, but the majority agreed. Earth would refuse. 12 hours before the deadline, Day watched as Ambassador Mira transmitted humanity's response. It was simple and short, no, one word. But it changed everything. The Valorian fleet's response came immediately. Ships began moving, rearranging themselves into attack formations. Weapon systems powered up. The space around Mars lit up with energy readings. Quan stood next to Day, his hands shaking. Sir, what happens now? Dee put a hand on the young man's shoulder. Now we find out what humanity is really made of. In government buildings across Earth, leaders watched the alien fleet prepare for war. Parents held their children. Soldiers said goodbye to their families. Engineers rushed to weapons factories. Everyone knew what was coming. Admiral Tay stood in the command center of Earth's defense headquarters, looking at a map of human space. 3 small colonies, 1 home planet, a tiny defense fleet, against an empire that had conquered 200 worlds. All ships, he said into the communications channel, prepare for combat. This is not a battle for territory. This is a battle for the right to exist. Make every shot count. Make them remember that humanity does not surrender. Across human space, ships powered up their weapons. Soldiers checked their equipment. Civilians moved to shelters deep underground. The 72 hours had ended. The war had begun. The first attack came at dawn on Proxima Station, humanity's furthest colony. 300,000 people lived there, mining rare metals from the system's asteroid belt. They had 16 hours of warning before the Valorian fleet arrived. General Sung coordinated the evacuation from his command post on Earth. Get the children out first, he ordered. Pack the transports full. Leave everything else behind, but there was not enough time. Not enough ships. When the Valorian dreadnoughts emerged from faster-than-light travel, half the station's population was still waiting to evacuate. Lord Vexer did not wait. His ships opened fire immediately. The weapons were beyond anything humanity had seen before. Beams of pure energy cut through the station's shields like they were paper. Metal melted. Sections of the station exploded. People died by the thousands in the first minute. Commander Day watched the feed from Bastion 7, his fists clenched. Get our ships there now, he ordered. Sir, we only have 12 ships in that sector, Quan replied. Against their fleet, we won't last 5 minutes. I don't care, Day said. Those are our people. We fight. Captain Bora commanded the stealth frigate Silent Arrow. It was small, experimental. Built using technology humanity had barely understood when they salvaged it from a crashed alien probe 10 years ago. The ship could hide itself from most sensors, becoming almost invisible. Bora had a crew of 40 people. They were volunteers, every one of them. They knew this mission would probably kill them. Take us in close, Bora ordered. Right into the heart of their formation. Her navigator looked at her like she was insane. Captain, if they detect us at that range, we're dead before we can even fire. Then we better not get detected, Bora replied. Silent Arrow slipped through space like a ghost. The Valorian ships were huge, their sensors powerful, but they were not looking for something so small. They were focused on destroying Proxima Station. Bora studied the enemy flagship. It was massive, 5 kilometers long, bristling with weapons, but she had studied the sensor data carefully. She had found what she was looking for. There, she said, pointing at a section of the ship's hull. That's where their shield generators are, 4 of them clustered together. If we take those out, the whole ship loses its shields. Lieutenant Jin, her weapons officer, prepared the missiles. They were old nuclear warheads, primitive by galactic standards. Humanity had thousands of them left over from their own wars. Now they would use them against an empire. Firing solution locked, Jin said. His voice was steady. Fire, Bora ordered. 6 missiles launched from Silent Arrow. They crossed the distance in seconds. The Valorian flagship's point defense systems tried to shoot them down, but the missiles came from too close. Too fast. 4 of them hit. The nuclear explosions were small compared to the size of the ship, but they hit exactly where they needed to. The shield generators exploded. Without shields, the flagship's hull was exposed. Hit them again, Bora ordered. Everything we have. Silent Arrow fired every remaining weapon. Missiles, torpedoes, even their outdated railguns. All of it slammed into the flagship's exposed hull. The great ship shuddered. Explosions rippled across its surface. Secondary detonations spread through the interior. The ship began to list to one side. They're evacuating, Jin said, watching his sensors. Escape pods launching, but not enough of them. Not fast enough. The flagship's reactor went critical. The explosion lit up space like a second sun. When it faded, the flagship was gone. 12,000 Valorian warriors died in that moment. The entire Valorian fleet stopped. For 5 seconds, nothing moved. They could not believe what had just happened. Get us out of here, Bora ordered. Silent Arrow's engines flared and the small ship disappeared into the darkness of space. News of the flagship's destruction spread across human space in hours. It spread across the galaxy in days. The Valorian Imperium, which had not lost a single capital ship in 800 years, had just lost their flagship to a species they thought was primitive. Admiral Tay watched the recording again and again. This changes everything, he said to his staff. They're not invincible. They bleed, they die. Just like us, but the Valorians were not retreating. If anything, they became more aggressive. Lord Vexor, who had survived his flagship's destruction in an escape pod, was furious. He ordered his remaining ships to attack every human position simultaneously. Earth's defense fleet could not match them in direct combat. The human ships were smaller, slower, and less powerful. In a fair fight, they would lose every time. So Admiral Tay made sure there were no fair fights. Human ships used the asteroid belts as cover, hiding behind rocks and launching surprise attacks. They used gravity wells from planets to slingshot themselves to high speeds, ramming Valorian ships before they could react. They deployed minefields and traps. Lieutenant Jin developed something he called the Swarm Protocol. Small drones, each one carrying a single explosive charge. They were cheap to make and easy to deploy. Hundreds of them could be launched at once. The Valorian point defense systems were designed to stop missiles and torpedoes, big targets moving in predictable patterns. The swarms were different. There were too many of them, moving in random patterns too small to track efficiently. Jin tested the protocol against a Valorian cruiser. 500 drones swarmed the ship like angry insects. The cruiser's defenses shot down 300 of them, but 200 got through. They attached themselves to the hull and detonated simultaneously. The cruiser's armor cracked. Its engines failed. It drifted dead in space. Across human space, every shipyard and factory converted to war production. Civilian engineer Yoon worked 20-hour days designing new weapons. She barely slept, barely ate. Like everyone else, she knew that humanity's survival depended on what they could build in the next few weeks. We need to be smarter, she told her team. We can't match their technology, so we have to use ours in ways they won't expect. She designed the Hellfire torpedo. It used captured Valorian fuel cells, the ones salvaged from destroyed enemy ships. The fuel cells were unstable and highly explosive. Yoon weaponized them. The first Hellfire torpedo was tested against a Valorian destroyer. The torpedo penetrated the ship's hull, and the fuel cell detonated inside. The explosion tore the destroyer in half. Yoon watched the test results and allowed herself a tired smile. Good. Make 10,000 more. 3 weeks into the war, the Valorian Imperium had lost 40 ships. It was not a huge number compared to their total fleet, but it was 40 more than they had expected to lose, 40 more than they had lost in the previous century. Lord Vexor sent a message back to the Imperium's homeworld. He requested the Second Fleet. When Admiral Tay learned about this, his face went pale. The Second Fleet meant 300 more warships. It meant the Imperium was taking this war seriously now. Can we hold against that many? General Sung asked. Tay looked at the tactical display, showing human positions across 3 star systems. I don't know, but we're going to try. Commander Day stood on Bastion 7 watching Earth below. The planet looked peaceful from orbit, blue and green and beautiful, but he knew that down there millions of people were preparing for invasion. Shelters were being dug. Weapons were being distributed. Children were being taught how to hide. Quan approached him. The young ensign looked different now. The fear was still in his eyes, but there was something else too. Determination. Sir, the Second Fleet will be here in 8 days, Quan said. Day nodded. Then we have 8 days to figure out how to stop them. Is that possible? Day thought about Captain Bora, who had destroyed a flagship with a ship the size of a small building. He thought about Lieutenant Jin and his swarms. He thought about Yoon, designing weapons in a factory that made farming equipment 2 months ago. Humanity has survived ice ages, plagues, and world wars, Day said. We've survived because we adapt. We learn, we refuse to quit. The Valorians think they understand us. They think we're just another weak species. But they're wrong. They're about to learn what happens when you threaten humanity's home. The Second Fleet arrived 8 days later, exactly as predicted. 300 ships emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. Admiral Tay looked at the display showing the massive enemy fleet. Then he looked at his own forces. 200 ships, most of them damaged from previous battles. All units, he said calmly. Execute Plan Hornet. Make them regret coming here. The war was about to get worse. 9 months had passed since the war began. Earth's sky was full of satellites and defense platforms, a metal shell trying to protect the planet below. But everyone knew it might not be enough. Captain Ryung stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, Earth's only capital-class warship. The ship was old, designed 30 years ago when humanity still thought aliens might be friendly. Its armor was outdated. Its weapons were less powerful than Valorian equivalents, but it was all humanity had. Status report, Ryung ordered. His executive officer checked the displays. All systems operational. Crew at battle stations. We're as ready as we'll ever be. Ryung looked at the tactical display showing the Valorian Third Fleet. 300 fresh warships, undamaged and fully supplied. And somewhere among them, the Void Guard waited in their transport ships. They outnumber us 5 to 1, his weapons officer said quietly. Then we better make every shot count, Ryung replied. On the ground, Medic Juan worked in a field hospital near New Sol Colony. The colony had been under attack for 3 days. Valorian ground forces had landed and were pushing toward the main city. Juan had seen things he would never forget. Burned soldiers, children who had lost their families, civilians caught in crossfire. He worked until his hands shook from exhaustion, then kept working. We need more supplies, a nurse said. We're running out of everything. Use what we have, Juan replied. Improvise. We can't let these people down. Outside the hospital, he could hear explosions. The battle was getting closer. Agent Suki had been working undercover for 2 months. She had learned the Valorian language from Dr. Hana, studying day and night until she could speak it perfectly. Then she had volunteered for the most dangerous mission of the war. She had allowed herself to be captured. The Valorians had found her on a damaged ship, pretending to be a survivor. They took her to their command station, planning to use her as a slave. But Suki was not there to serve. She was there to learn. She cleaned floors and served food, keeping her head down and her ears open. The Valorians talked freely around her. They did not think a human slave could understand their language. She learned about their supply routes, their command structure, their weaknesses, and she discovered something important. The Valorians were not as united as they seemed. Some commanders questioned the war. They had lost more ships in 9 months than in the previous 300 years. Resources were being stretched. Soldiers were afraid. The Imperium's strength came from its rigid command structure. Every order came from the top. Every decision required approval from Lord Vexer or the High Command. It made them organized, but it also made them slow to adapt. Suki recorded everything she learned on a hidden data chip. She just needed to find a way to get the information back to Earth. The Battle of New Sol lasted 7 days. The Void Guard led the assault, and they were everything the report said. Each warrior wore black armor that could withstand most weapons. They moved with perfect coordination. They had never lost. General Sung's forces fought them street by street. Human soldiers used every tactic they knew. Ambushes, traps, building collapses. Nothing worked. The Void Guard advanced steadily, unstoppable. On the 5th day, Minister J's factories completed their latest project. Powered exoskeletons, reverse-engineered from damaged Void Guard armor that had been recovered from previous battles. The exoskeletons were not as good as the originals. They were heavier, slower, less durable, but they gave human soldiers enhanced strength and better protection. General Sung deployed them immediately. The next battle was different. When the Void Guard advanced, they met human soldiers in powered armor. The fight was brutal and close. Buildings collapsed. Streets were torn apart. For the first time in their history, the Void Guard was stopped. They did not retreat. The elite warriors did not know how to retreat, but they did not advance either. The battle became a stalemate. Captain Bora's silent arrow was falling apart. The ship had been in continuous combat for 9 months. Systems failed regularly. Hull breaches appeared in new places every week. But Bora and her crew kept flying. "We've got one last mission," Admiral Tay told her. "The Valorian supply depot at Epsilon Station. If we can destroy it, their fleet will run short on fuel and ammunition." Bora looked at the tactical data. The depot was heavily defended. 20 warships guarded it. "We'll never get through that." "You got through their flagship's defenses," Tay replied. "That was different." "They weren't expecting us. Now they know about Silent Arrow. They'll be watching for us." "I know," Tay said quietly. "I wouldn't ask if we had any other option. But if we don't hit that depot, they'll have enough supplies to push all the way to Earth." Bora looked at her crew. 40 people who had followed her through 9 months of impossible missions. They were exhausted. They deserved rest, but rest would have to wait. "We'll do it," she said. The attack on Epsilon Station was Captain Bora's finest moment. Silent Arrow slipped through the defensive perimeter using every trick Bora had learned. They hid behind asteroids. They matched their speed to space debris. They played dead when sensors swept over them. Lieutenant Jin had loaded the ship with every Hellfire torpedo they could carry. 20 warheads, each one carrying Valorian fuel cells. They got within firing range. Bora gave the order. All 20 torpedoes launched at once. The Valorian defenses reacted, but not fast enough. 16 torpedoes hit the depot. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. The depot's own fuel reserves detonated, creating a chain reaction. The 20 defending warships were caught in the blast. When the explosion faded, the depot and all 20 ships were gone. Silent Arrow barely escaped. The ship was damaged by the blast wave, systems failing, hull cracked. But they made it out. "That's it," Bora told her crew. "This ship has given everything it has. We're going home." Counselor Mireille stood before Earth's emergency government. The leadership of every nation sat in the underground bunker, faces haggard from 9 months of war. "We're losing," she said bluntly. "The Valorians have more ships than us, more soldiers, more resources. We've fought well. We've made them pay for every meter of space. But the math is against us." "What are you suggesting?" asked one of the other counselors. "Surrender?" "I'm suggesting we face reality," Mireille replied. 3 million humans are dead. 2 colonies are destroyed. How many more must die before we admit we can't win this war?" Admiral Tay stood up. "We can win. We just need time to build more weapons." "We don't have time," Mireille shot back. "The Void Guard is pushing toward Earth. They'll be here in 3 weeks." The room erupted in arguments. Some wanted to keep fighting. Others wanted to negotiate. Everyone was tired and afraid. Dr. Isol cleared her throat. The room fell quiet. "There is another option," she said. "Project Prometheus." Everyone turned to look at her. "We've built 40 fold-space weapons," Isol continued. "We could deploy them against the Valorian homeworld and their major colonies. If we collapse space in their core systems, we could destroy their civilization." The silence was heavy. "That would kill billions," Counselor Mireille said. "Yes," Isol replied. "It would, but it would also end the war immediately." "We would become monsters," someone said. Admiral Tay stood again. "The Valorians have given us 2 choices. Extinct or monstrous. I choose monstrous. I choose survival." The debate raged for hours. In the end, no decision was made. But the weapons were prepared just in case. "Commander." Day received a coded transmission from Agent Suki. She had escaped from the Valorian command station and was making her way back to human space. The intelligence she brought was invaluable. Supply routes, commander locations. Most importantly, evidence that the Valorian Imperium was not as unified as it seemed. "We can use this," Day told Admiral Tay. "If we can broadcast to their people, show them how much this war is costing them, we might create internal pressure for peace. Or it might make them fight harder," Tay replied. "It's worth trying," Day argued, "especially if the alternative is Project Prometheus." Captain Ryung's Indomitable led the defense of Mars orbit when the Valorian Third Fleet finally attacked. The battle lasted 16 hours. Human ships fought with desperate courage, but they were being ground down. Ryung watched his tactical display as ship after ship went dark. The defense was collapsing. Mars would fall within days. Then Earth would be alone. "Sir, we're receiving new orders," his communications officer said. Ryung read the orders and felt his blood run cold. They were being ordered to retreat, to fall back to Earth for the final defense. "Belay that order," Ryung said. "We hold the line here." "Sir, that's insubordination." "I don't care," Ryung replied. "If Mars falls, Earth is next. We buy them as much time as we can." Medic Juan was treating wounded soldiers when the hospital took a direct hit. The building shook. Lights failed. Juan found himself trapped under rubble, his leg pinned. As he waited for rescue, he thought about everything he had seen. The courage, the sacrifice, the terrible cost of freedom. When they finally pulled him out, he refused to evacuate. "There are more wounded. I'm still needed here." Agent Suki finally reached Admiral Tay with her intelligence. She was thin and exhausted, but her eyes were sharp. "The Imperium can be broken," she told him, "but not with weapons. With information. With doubt, we need to make their people question this war." Tay looked at the young woman who had risked everything. The emergency meeting took place in the deepest bunker on Earth. Every surviving member of the human leadership attended. The decision they had to make would determine the fate of two civilizations. Admiral Tay stood before them, his face gray with exhaustion. "Project Prometheus is ready. We have 40-fold space weapons deployed on stealth ships throughout Valorian space. We can target their homeworld, their 3 largest colonies, and their major military installations. If we activate all 40 weapons simultaneously, we will kill approximately 6 billion Valorians and cripple their empire." The room was silent. Everyone understood the weight of what he was saying. Counselor Mirai spoke first. "If we do this, we become worse than them. We become the genocidal monsters that future civilizations will remember with horror. If we don't do this, there will be no future human civilizations." Tay replied. "The Void Guard will reach Earth in 2 weeks. Our defenses are failing. This is our last option." Dr. Hana raised her hand. "There might be another way. Agent Suki's intelligence shows fractures in the Imperium. If we demonstrate our capability without using it fully, we might force them to negotiate." "Demonstrate how?" asked Minister J. Commander Day stepped forward. "The Epsilon system. It's a Valorian military outpost, but it's uninhabited except for soldiers. We could evacuate them and then collapse the system. Show them we have the power and the will to destroy their worlds, but give them a chance to choose peace." "They might not evacuate," someone said. "Lord Vexer might refuse, thinking it's a bluff." "Then we show them it's not a bluff," Tay said quietly. "And those soldiers die. But it would be thousands instead of billions." The debate lasted 6 hours. In the end, they voted. The measure passed by a single vote. Captain Bora volunteered to deliver the ultimatum. Silent Arrow was barely functional, held together by emergency repairs and hope, but it could make one more trip. She piloted the damaged ship to Epsilon system, broadcasting on all Valorian frequencies. "This is Captain Bora of the Earth vessel Silent Arrow. You have 6 hours to evacuate this system. In 6 hours we will demonstrate a new weapon. Leave now or die." Lord Vexer received the message aboard his command ship. He laughed. "They're desperate, making threats they can't fulfill. Ignore them." His subordinate commanders were not so sure. The humans had surprised them before. "Sir, perhaps we should move the garrison just in case." "No," Vexer replied. "We do not retreat from human threats. Tell the garrison to remain at their posts." 4,000 Valorian soldiers waited in Epsilon system, following their commander's orders. 6 hours later, Silent Arrow activated the fold space weapon. Space collapsed in a sphere 10 kilometers wide. The military station, 3 moons, and 47 warships simply ceased to exist. The collapse was visible across 20 light-years, a brief flash of impossible light. 4,000 soldiers died because their commander thought humanity was bluffing. The message was clear. Humanity had weapons that could destroy worlds, and they would use them. The Valorian Imperium responded with shock. In 800 years of conquest, no species had ever threatened them like this. No species had ever had the power or the will to destroy Valorian worlds. Agent Suki, still working undercover, broadcast from inside Valorian space. She had hacked into their communication networks using information from Dr. Hana. "People of the Valorian Imperium," she said in perfect Valorian, "your leaders have been lying to you. This war has cost you over 500 ships and 80,000 warriors. The humans have weapons that can destroy your homeworld, and they will use them unless your leaders choose peace. She broadcast images of destroyed Valorian ships. She broadcast recordings of human resistance. She broadcast the truth. The message spread through the Imperium like fire. For the first time, ordinary Valorians saw what the war was really costing them. They saw that humanity would never surrender. They saw that continuing the war meant risking their own worlds. Protests began on Valorian colonies. Families who had lost warriors demanded answers. Military commanders questioned orders. Lord Vexer tried to suppress the broadcasts, but it was too late. The truth was out. Admiral Tay received a coded message 3 days later. A Valorian general named Koth wanted to negotiate. Not surrender, not submission, negotiation. It might be a trap, Commander Day warned. It might be, Tay agreed. But it might also be our chance to end this war. The negotiation took place in neutral space, aboard a small station that had been abandoned during the war. Admiral Tay led the human delegation. General Koth led the Valorian delegation. They met in a simple room with a table and chairs. Two species who had been killing each other for almost a year. Koth spoke first. Your weapons can destroy our worlds, but you only demonstrated them once. Why? Because we're not monsters, Tay replied. We didn't want this war. You forced it on us, but we're willing to end it without more bloodshed if you are. Lord Vexer will never agree to peace, Koth said. He believes the Imperium must never show weakness. Then remove him, Tay said bluntly. Your people are protesting. Your commanders are questioning orders. If Vexer won't make peace, find someone who will. Koth was silent for a long moment. What you suggest is treason. What we're doing is survival, Tay replied. Both our civilizations can survive this, or both can burn. Choose. The negotiation continued for 3 days. Neither side trusted the other, but both sides were exhausted. Both sides had lost too much. Captain Ryung's Indomitable was the last major human warship still fighting in the outer systems. His ship was damaged beyond repair, crew at half strength, but they kept fighting. Sir, we're receiving orders to cease fire, his communications officer said. Negotiations are underway. Ryung looked at his tactical display. Valorian ships were still in combat positions. Are they ceasing fire? Not yet, sir. Then neither are we. We hold the line until peace is confirmed, not promised. On the ground at New Seoul, Medic Juan continued treating wounded. The battle had paused, both sides waiting for news from the negotiations. But the wounded still needed care. He worked until he collapsed from exhaustion. When he woke up in a hospital bed, a nurse told him the news. It's over. They're signing a peace treaty. Juan closed his eyes and allowed himself to cry. The coup against Lord Vexer happened quietly. General Koth and several other commanders arrested him, citing his failure to protect the Imperium. The High Command, seeing the protests and the threat of human weapons, supported the coup. Vexer's last words were defiant. You are cowards. The Imperium does not negotiate with lesser species. Then perhaps the Imperium needs to change, Koth replied. The treaty was signed aboard Bastion 7, where Commander Day had first refused to evacuate. The terms were simple. The Valorian Imperium would withdraw from all human space. They would recognize Earth's sovereignty. They would pay reparations for the colonies they destroyed. In exchange, humanity would not deploy fold space weapons against Valorian worlds. They would not share the weapons technology with other species. They would not seek revenge. It was not a surrender. It was not a victory. It was survival. Dr. Hana sat across from General Koth during the signing ceremony. Your empire has conquered 200 species. Why did you stop with us? Koth looked at her with his golden eyes. Because you showed us something we had never seen before. You showed us a species that would rather burn everything than kneel. We could have destroyed you, but it would have cost us everything we are. The Imperium would have survived, but it would have been hollow. Empty. You won by making victory too expensive. Admiral Tay stood at the observation window of Bastion 7, watching the Valorian fleet withdraw. The war was over. Humanity had survived, but the cost haunted him. 3 million dead, 2 colonies destroyed, an entire generation scarred by war, and somewhere in space, 40 fold space weapons waited, ready to destroy worlds if ever humanity needed them again. Commander Day found him there. Sir, we're receiving reports from across human space. People are celebrating. Good, Tay said quietly. They should celebrate. They earned it. But you're not celebrating, Tay shook his head. I'm thinking about Nari, about Captain Bora's crew who died at Epsilon Station, about all the soldiers who never came home. We won, Day, but I wonder what we became in order to win. We became survivors, Day replied. That's all we ever tried to be. 5 years after the war ended, Earth had changed. The defense fleet had been rebuilt stronger than before. The colonies had been repaired and expanded. New technologies developed during the war had revolutionized industry. But more importantly, the galaxy had changed. 17 species who had been client states of the Valorian Imperium declared independence, inspired by humanity's example. Some asked Earth for help. Some formed their own alliances. The Imperium remained powerful, but it was no longer invincible. Other species no longer feared them the way they once had. Captain Ryung's Indomitable had been decommissioned and turned into a memorial. The great ship sat in orbit around Earth, a monument to everyone who fought. Carved into its hull were the names of all 3 million humans who died in the war. And below the names a simple inscription. They demanded submission. We chose fire. May we never forget the cost of either. Dr. Hana visited the memorial often. She had become Earth's ambassador to the galactic community. The mining colony on Delta 9 fell after 3 days of fighting. Commander Ho watched from a hidden bunker as Valorian soldiers marched through the streets. His people had fought hard, but there were too many enemies. The colony's last defense ship had been destroyed 12 hours ago. What do we do now? Asked one of his fighters, a young woman named Nari who had been a shuttle pilot before the war. Ho looked at the weapons cache they had hidden in the bunker. Rifles, explosives, tools that could be turned into traps. The Valorians had taken the colony, but that did not mean the fight was over. Now we make them wish they had never come here, Ho said. The Valorian occupation force numbered 3,000 soldiers. They had expected the humans to surrender once the colony fell, but surrender was not in Ho's plan. The attack started small. A sniper shot here, a sabotaged power line there, supply convoys that disappeared in the night. The Valorians could not understand it. They had conquered the colony. Why were the humans still fighting? Ho knew every tunnel and maintenance shaft in Delta 9. He had worked in these mines for 15 years before becoming a soldier. His people moved through the colony like ghosts, striking and vanishing before the Valorians could respond. One night they destroyed the main communication relay. The Valorian commander could not contact his fleet. By the time they repaired it, Ho's fighters had planted explosives in 3 ammunition depots. The Valorians learned to fear the darkness in the tunnels. They learned that occupying human territory was different from conquering it. On Earth, the war effort consumed everything. Minister J coordinated the conversion of every factory, every workshop, every industrial facility. Car plants made missiles. Electronics factories made drones. Even furniture makers were building components for weapons. We need more, Admiral Tay kept saying. More ships. More weapons. More everything. J barely slept. She coordinated supply chains, managed resources, and solved 1,000 problems every day. When factory workers collapsed from exhaustion, she found more workers. When materials ran short, she found alternatives. Earth's economy had become a single machine with one purpose: war. Dr. Isol worked in a classified laboratory deep underground. She was a quantum physicist, one of Earth's leading experts in fold space technology. Humanity had been trying to develop faster-than-light travel for years, but the technology was still experimental and dangerous. Now Isol was trying to weaponize it. The fold space drive creates a bubble of compressed space, she explained to Admiral Tay during one of his visits. We travel by folding space around us, but if we collapse that bubble incorrectly, bad things happen. How bad? Tay asked. Isol pulled up a simulation. If we collapse a fold space bubble in the middle of normal space, it creates a temporary gravitational anomaly, like a very small black hole that only lasts a few seconds. Anything in the collapse zone gets torn apart. Tay stared at the simulation. How small is the zone? Right now? About 50 meters. But if we increase the power input, maybe we could expand it to 500 meters, maybe more. That could destroy a ship. That could destroy several ships, Isol corrected. The problem is that the device is unstable. We can only use it once, and the ship carrying it would be at the center of the collapse zone. The pilot would not survive. Tay was quiet for a long moment. Keep working on it. We might need it. The second fleet pushed deeper into human space. One by one, humanity's outer colonies fell. The Valorians had learned from their early losses. They no longer underestimated human tactics. Their formations were tighter. Their defenses were stronger. Admiral Tay's forces fought a running battle, retreating slowly toward Earth. Every light year cost the Valorians ships and soldiers. But it cost humanity too. Half the defense fleet was destroyed or crippled. Captain Bora's silent arrow had survived longer than anyone expected. She had become a legend among human forces, the captain who destroyed the enemy flagship. But her ship was damaged, her crew exhausted. "We've got one more fight in us," she told her crew. "Let's make it count." Lieutenant Jin had improved the swarm protocol. The drones were faster now, smarter, harder to stop. He had also developed a new tactic. The swarms could link together, combining their explosive power into a single devastating blast. Engineer Yoon had refined the Hellfire torpedo. The new version used 3 Valorian fuel cells instead of 1. The explosion was 3 times more powerful. She had also developed something new. A mine that looked exactly like space debris. The Valorians had no idea they were flying through minefields until it was too late. But despite all these efforts, the Valorians kept coming. They had lost 70 ships so far, but they had hundreds more. They could afford losses. Humanity could not. 6 months into the war, pilot Nari volunteered for what everyone knew was a suicide mission. Dr. Isul had finally perfected the fold space weapon. It was the size of a small car, packed with power cells and unstable technology. It could only be used once, and someone had to manually activate it at exactly the right moment. "I'll do it," Nari said when they asked for volunteers. Admiral Tay looked at the young woman. She was only 26 years old. "You understand this is a one-way trip?" "I understand," Nari replied. "My family died when the Valorians bombed my city. I have nothing left to lose, but maybe I can save someone else's family." They gave her an old shuttle, one barely capable of spaceflight. They mounted the fold space weapon in the cargo bay. The plan was simple and terrible. Fly into the middle of the Valorian formation and activate the device. Nari launched from Earth on a cold morning. She flew her shuttle straight at the Valorian fleet, which was preparing to attack Luna Base. The enemy ships saw her coming. They thought she was trying to ram them. Their point defenses opened fire. The shuttle's shields failed. Hull breaches appeared, but Nari kept flying, pushing her damaged ship forward with everything it had. She reached the center of the Valorian formation and activated the device. For 3 seconds, space itself broke. A sphere of collapsed space expanded from Nari's position, 500 meters in diameter. 17 Valorian cruisers were caught in the collapse zone. The ships did not explode. They simply ceased to exist, torn apart at the atomic level by impossible gravitational forces. When the collapse ended, there was nothing left. No debris, no wreckage, just empty space where 17 warships and 1 shuttle had been. The Valorian fleet scattered in panic. They had never seen anything like this. They did not understand what had happened. All they knew was that 17 ships and 10,000 warriors had vanished in 3 seconds. Commander Day watched the recording of Nari's sacrifice. He watched it over and over until he had memorized every moment. She had been so young. She should have had a whole life ahead of her. "Sir," Quan said quietly, "Lord Vexer is broadcasting again." Day looked up. "Put it through." The Valorian commander appeared on the display. His scaled face was twisted in rage. "You are making this war worse than it needs to be. Surrender now and some of you will be spared. Continue fighting and we will kill every human in the galaxy." Day looked at the alien warrior. "You came to our worlds and demanded we kneel. We said no. You attacked our colonies and killed our people. And now you're surprised that we fight back? You don't understand humanity at all. We would rather die standing than live on our knees." Vexer's eyes narrowed. "Then you will die. I have requested the 3rd Fleet and the Void Guard. The elite warriors of the Imperium are coming. Your primitive weapons will not save you from them." The transmission ended. Admiral Tay called an emergency meeting. The Void Guard are their best soldiers. They wear advanced armor that makes them almost invincible. If they make it to Earth's surface, our ground forces won't last a week. General Sung nodded grimly. "I've read the reports. The Void Guard have never lost a ground battle. Then we need to make sure they do not reach the ground," Tay said. "We need to stop them in space," Dr. Hana spoke up. She had been quiet for most of the meeting. "We can't stop them. We've been trying for 6 months and we're losing. Every battle costs us more than we can afford. The math is simple. They have more ships, more soldiers, more resources. Eventually they will win, so what do you suggest? Tay asked. Hana looked around the room. We need to change the equation. We need something they can't defend against. Something so terrible that it forces them to negotiate. What are you talking about? Day asked. Hana took a deep breath. Dr. Isol's weapon. What if we build more of them? What if we target not their fleet but their worlds? The room went silent. Everyone understood what she was suggesting. That would kill billions, Minister J said quietly. They've killed 3 million of us, Hana replied, and they won't stop until we're extinct. We're not fighting for victory anymore. We're fighting for survival, and survival requires weapons that our enemy fears. Admiral Tay stood and walked to the window. He looked out at Earth, the planet he was trying to save. Start building them, he said finally. But we won't use them unless we have no other choice. And if we do use them, may whatever gods exist forgive us. The order went out. In secret laboratories across human space, scientists began building fold space weapons. Not just one. Dozens of them. The Valorian Third Fleet arrived 3 weeks later. With them came the Void Guard, 5,000 elite warriors in black armor.